It was a Thursday night, around 10 o'clock, when I heard the sound of drawers being violently slammed open in my daughter's bedroom. The sharp banging echoed through the narrow hallway of my small two-bedroom house, each crash making my heart skip a beat. I was sitting in the living room, a half-finished embroidery piece on my lap, when the noise started. At first, I thought maybe something had fallen, an accident. But then came another slam, and another, angry and deliberate. I set down my needle and thread, my hands already trembling, and walked down the hallway. The old wooden floorboards creaked under my feet. I could smell the lavender air freshener I'd sprayed earlier that evening, trying to make everything nice. When I reached her door, slightly ajar, I pushed it open slowly. Sarah was there, throwing clothes into 2 large suitcases spread open on the bed, her movements frantic and furious. My throat tightened. I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, "Sarah, honey, what's happening? What are you doing?" She didn't even look at me, just kept grabbing hangers, ripping blouses and dresses off them, tossing them carelessly into the luggage. I asked again, louder this time, my voice cracking, "Sarah, please talk to me. What's going on?" That's when she stopped. She turned around, and the look in her eyes. I'll never forget it. Cold, hard, full of contempt. She pointed her finger directly at my face and screamed, "Your house stinks, Mom. It reeks of poverty, of failure, of everything I hate about my life. I can't stand living in this disgusting dump anymore. I'm moving in with Patricia, Michael's mother, because at least she has a decent house, not this pathetic excuse for a home." The words hit me like physical blows. My legs felt weak. I grabbed the doorframe to steady myself. Tears started streaming down my face before I could stop them. I tried to say something, anything, but my throat was completely closed. Before I could even process what she'd said, Sarah brushed past me, dragging both suitcases behind her. She slammed the front door so hard that the framed photo of us from her college graduation fell off the living room wall and shattered on the floor. I stood there in the hallway, alone, listening to the sound of her car engine starting, then fading as she drove away into the night. But what she didn't know was that the very next day, she and her perfect mother-in-law, Patricia, were going to receive a surprise that would change absolutely everything. But before I continue with what happened next, I need you to do something for me. If you're watching this video, please hit that like button right now and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love knowing how far these stories reach, and your support means the world to me. Now, let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand how I got here, how a mother who gave everything could end up being treated like garbage by her own daughter. My name is Helen. I'm 69 years old, and this is the story of how my own daughter humiliated me in the worst way possible, but ended up learning a lesson she'll never forget. I'm a widow. I've been alone for 12 years now, ever since my husband David died in a car accident on Route 95, coming home from work one rainy November evening. I remember that phone call like it was yesterday. It was 7:43 p.m. I was making spaghetti for dinner when the hospital called. After David passed, I raised Sarah completely on my own. I worked as a seamstress, taking in custom orders, alterations, wedding dresses, prom gowns, anything people needed. I'd work from home, hunched over my old Singer sewing machine that David bought me for our 10th anniversary. The machine was avocado green, vintage from the 1970s, and it made this rhythmic humming sound that became the soundtrack of our lives. I never made a fortune, but I earned enough to pay the bills, put food on the table, keep the lights on. We lived modestly, but we lived with dignity. My house is small, I'll admit that. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a cramped kitchen where only 2 people can fit comfortably, and a living room with a couch David and I picked out together back in 2008. The upholstery is faded now, the armrests worn down to the lighter fabric underneath. But it's clean. I've always kept it spotless. Every Saturday morning I'd vacuum, dust, scrub the bathroom, mop the kitchen floor. The house smelled like pine sol and the vanilla candles I'd burn in the evenings. This was my home, built with sacrifice, maintained with pride. I was always a devoted mother. I went without, so Sarah wouldn't have to. I remember one winter when she was 14, right after David died, she wanted this particular winter coat all her friends were wearing. It cost $120. I didn't have that kind of money just lying around, so I skipped buying myself a new coat that year and wore the same threadbare jacket I'd had for 5 years. My fingers would go numb waiting for the bus in January, but seeing Sarah warm and happy was worth it. I sold my wedding ring, a simple gold band with 3 small diamonds that David had saved up for months to buy. It was worth about $3,000 at the pawn shop. I used that money to pay for Sarah's college graduation ceremony expenses when she finished her business administration degree. She wanted to walk across that stage in style, wanted the cap and gown, the announcements, the party afterwards. So I gave her that. I worked overtime for years to pay her tuition at a private university because she refused to attend the local community college. She said it wasn't good enough, that she deserved better. The tuition was $980 per month for 4 years. I paid every single payment on time. That's $47,040 total. I'd sew until 2, sometimes 3 in the morning, my back aching, my eyes burning under the dim lamplight, finishing wedding dresses and alterations just to make sure that check cleared every month. I went hungry many times during those years. I'd make dinner for Sarah, watch her eat, tell her I'd already eaten at a friend's house when really I was saving money on groceries. There were weeks when I'd live on instant ramen noodles and whatever leftovers Sarah didn't finish. I wore the same 3 outfits for years, rotating them, patching holes, replacing buttons. Meanwhile, Sarah always had new clothes, new shoes, looked put together. When she got married to Michael 3 years ago, I paid for her wedding dress. She'd fallen in love with this elaborate gown at a bridal boutique downtown, all lace and beading, with a 12-foot train. It cost $8,000. $8,000. I had to take out a small personal loan to cover it, and I spent the next 18 months paying it off, $220 per month plus interest. But I did it because I wanted my daughter to have her dream wedding, to feel like a princess on her special day. Looking back now, over the course of 8 years from when she started college until 2 years into her marriage, I gave Sarah a total of $55,600. That's not counting the regular expenses of raising her, feeding her, housing her. That's just the extra money I sacrificed, the money I could have saved for my retirement, for emergency medical bills, for home repairs I desperately needed. But she was my daughter. She was everything to me. And I truly believed that she'd remember these sacrifices, that she'd appreciate what I'd done, that our bond was unbreakable. I was wrong. The Sarah I raised, the sweet little girl I remembered, started changing after she got married. She and Michael lived with me for 2 years while they saved money for their own place. At least, that's what they told me. In the beginning, I was happy to have them. I thought it would be nice, having Sarah around, getting to know my son-in-law better. But almost immediately, things started to feel different. It started small. So small, I told myself I was being oversensitive. Sarah began making little comments about the house. She'd wrinkle her nose when she walked in and say things like, "Mom, it smells kind of musty in here," or, "This furniture is so outdated." I'd brush it off, laugh nervously, promise to open more windows, buy different air fresheners. Michael was polite at first, always saying, "Yes, ma'am," and "Thank you, Helen." But there was something in his eyes when he looked around my home, a kind of judgment, a subtle superiority. He'd wipe his shoes on the doormat for an unnecessarily long time, as if my floors were dirty, which they weren't. I scrubbed them every week. Then I met Patricia, Michael's mother. She came over one Sunday afternoon about 4 months after the wedding. She pulled up in a silver Lexus, stepped out wearing a cream-colored pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly income, carrying a designer purse I'd seen in a magazine once for $2,400. She wore 3 rings on her fingers, diamonds catching the light, and perfume so strong I could smell it from the doorway. She greeted me with a tight smile, the kind that doesn't reach your eyes and barely touch the coffee I'd made in my nicest mugs. The whole visit, she talked about her house, how spacious it was, how she'd just remodeled the kitchen with marble countertops, how her garden had a fountain and professional landscaping. Every story was designed to show me what she had and what I didn't. I saw something shift in Sarah's eyes that day. She looked at Patricia with this admiration, almost like envy, and then she looked at me, at my small kitchen with the chipped linoleum floor and the 15-year-old refrigerator, and I saw shame. My daughter was ashamed of me. After that visit, Sarah's complaints got worse. She started saying the house was too small, that there wasn't enough privacy, that my sewing machine was too loud. One evening around 6:30, I was working on a rush order, a bridesmaid dress that needed to be finished by the next morning. Sarah came home from work, heard the machine running, and snapped at me. "Mom, for God's sake, that noise is unbearable. I work hard all day, and I come home to this constant racket. Can't you do this during the day like a normal person?" I tried explaining that this was my job, that I had deadlines just like she did, but she rolled her eyes and stormed into her bedroom, slamming the door. Michael started making comments about my cooking. I'd spend an hour making dinner, a nice meatloaf with mashed potatoes and green beans, and he'd take one bite and say, "Helen, do you have any different seasonings? This tastes kind of bland. My mom makes this recipe with herbs and wine, completely different level." Sarah wouldn't defend me. She'd just nod and say, "Yeah, Mom, maybe try Patricia's recipe sometime." It felt like tiny cuts, one after another, each one small enough that I could convince myself it wasn't that bad. But together, they were destroying me. There was this one Saturday afternoon. I'll never forget it. It was Sarah's 30th birthday, and she'd decided to have a party at my house because she and Michael hadn't saved enough yet to rent a venue. I spent an entire week preparing. I cleaned every corner of the house, washed all the curtains, even scrubbed the grout in the bathroom tiles with a toothbrush. I baked a 3-layer chocolate cake from scratch, spent 6 hours decorating it with fondant flowers. I made 200 mini quiches, spinach and cheese pastries, deviled eggs, everything I could think of. When the guests started arriving around 2 p.m., I noticed they were all Sarah's co-workers and Michael's friends, people I'd never met. They walked in wearing expensive clothes, carrying bottles of wine that probably cost $50 each, and I could see them looking around my home with barely concealed disdain. I tried being friendly, offering the food I'd made, and this one woman, a blonde in stiletto heels, took a mini quiche, bit into it, and said loudly to her friend, "Oh my God, this is so homemade, like, in a bad way. Reminds me of church basement parties." They laughed. I felt my face burn with humiliation, but I smiled and walked away. Later, when I approached Sarah to ask if she needed anything, she pulled me aside roughly and hissed in my ear, "Mom, please stop hovering around with those trays. You're embarrassing me. You look like the hired help. Just go to the kitchen and stay there." I spent the rest of the party hidden in the kitchen, listening to laughter from the other room, feeling invisible in my own home. But I still didn't see what was really coming. I thought this was just a phase, that Sarah would remember who I was, what we meant to each other. I remembered the little girl who used to sit on my lap while I sewed, who'd tell me about her day at school, who'd help me bake cookies on Sunday afternoons. I remembered her at 13, right after David died, how she'd cry in my arms every night and whisper, "Mommy, I love you so much. We're gonna be okay, right? Together we can do anything." I remembered her high school graduation, how she'd hugged me on stage and said through tears, "Thank you for everything you've done for me, Mom. I'm going to make you so proud." Those memories kept me going. I kept telling myself that girl was still in there somewhere, that she'd come back to me. But I didn't realize that things were about to get so much worse. I didn't know that the worst humiliations were still ahead. And I definitely didn't know that Sarah and Michael were plotting something that could have destroyed my entire life. The signs were everywhere. Looking back now, I can see them so clearly, like warning flags waving frantically in front of my face. But when you're in the middle of it, when it's your own daughter and you love her more than life itself, your brain does this thing where it protects you. It makes excuses. It tells you stories that make the pain easier to swallow. You convince yourself that you're overreacting, that tomorrow will be better, that this is just temporary. So I ignored the signs, every single one of them, and there were so many. The first real incident happened on a Tuesday evening in March, about 6 months after Sarah and Michael moved in. It was around 7:15 p.m., and I'd just finished working on a custom wedding gown for one of my regular clients. I was exhausted, my shoulders aching from being hunched over the sewing machine all day. I decided to make something simple for dinner, just spaghetti with marinara sauce and garlic bread. Nothing fancy, but it was hot and filling. I set the table in the kitchen with 3 plates, 3 glasses of water, folded paper napkins. When Sarah and Michael came home around 7:45, they walked into the kitchen, and Michael looked at the food with this expression like I'd served him garbage. He didn't even sit down. He turned to Sarah and said, loud enough for me to hear, "Babe, do you want to just order something? I'm not really in the mood for this." Sarah glanced at the table, at the meal I'd prepared, and shrugged. "Yeah, sure, let's get Thai food." They pulled out their phones and started scrolling through a food delivery app right there in front of me. I stood by the stove, wooden spoon still in my hand, feeling completely invisible. I asked quietly, "Is something wrong with the food?" Michael barely looked at me. "No offense, Helen, but we eat out a lot. We're used to different flavors. Restaurant quality, you know?" They ordered their food, ate it in the living room watching Netflix, and left me alone in the kitchen staring at the 3 plates I'd set out. I ended up eating the spaghetti by myself, the garlic bread going cold on the counter. I told myself they were just tired from work, that it wasn't personal. The second incident was worse. It was a Saturday morning in early April, around 10:30 a.m. I was in the backyard, hanging laundry on the clothesline to dry. I've always preferred air-drying clothes when the weather is nice. It saves on the electric bill and makes everything smell fresh. Sarah came outside, still in her pajamas, holding her coffee mug. She watched me for a moment, then said, "Mom, why do you still hang clothes outside like this? It's so old-fashioned. We have a dryer. Don't you think it looks kind of trashy having all this laundry visible from the street?" I felt my face get hot. I tried to laugh it off. "Honey, people have been drying clothes outside for centuries. It's not trashy, it's economical. Plus, it's better for the fabric." She rolled her eyes. "Well, it embarrasses me. What if my friends drive by and see this? Can you at least take down my stuff and use the dryer for my clothes?" I did what she asked. I took down all her clothes, folded them carefully, and put them in the dryer. But inside, something cracked a little bit more. I remember thinking, when did my daughter become someone who's embarrassed by clotheslines? The third incident happened 2 weeks later on a rainy Thursday afternoon. It was around 3 p.m., and I was working on an alteration, hemming a pair of dress pants for a customer who needed them by Friday. My friend Margaret called. Margaret has been my best friend for 34 years, since we met at a church bake sale in 1991. We talk on the phone every few days, just catching up, sharing our lives. She called to tell me about her grandson's baseball game, and we were laughing about something when Sarah barged into my sewing room without knocking. She had this annoyed expression on her face. "Mom, can you keep it down? I'm trying to work from home today, and I can hear you cackling all the way in my room." Cackling. That's the word she used. Like I was some old witch instead of a mother having a conversation with her closest friend. I apologized to Margaret, told her I had to go, and hung up. I lowered my voice for the rest of the day, barely speaking above a whisper. That evening, Margaret called me back around 6:30. I didn't answer because I didn't want to disturb Sarah again. Margaret left a voicemail. "Helen, honey, I'm worried about you. The way Sarah talked to you today, that wasn't right. You deserve respect in your own home. Please think about what's happening there." I listened to that voicemail 3 times, sitting on my bed in the dark. Then I deleted it. I wasn't ready to admit that Margaret was right. The 4th incident was on Mother's Day, May 12th, a Sunday. I woke up early, around 6 a.m., feeling hopeful. I thought maybe Sarah would do something special, make breakfast, give me a card, anything to acknowledge the day. By 10 a.m., she still hadn't come out of her room. I made pancakes, her favorite kind with blueberries, and set them on the table. At 11:15, she finally emerged, looking at her phone. She grabbed a pancake with her hand, not even using a plate, and took a bite while scrolling. I said softly, "Happy Mother's Day, sweetheart." She looked up, distracted. "Oh, yeah. Happy Mother's Day, Mom." That was it. No hug, no card, no acknowledgement of the day at all. She went back to her room. Michael never said anything to me the entire day. Around 1 p.m., they both got dressed and left. Sarah called to me from the front door. "We're going to Patricia's for Mother's Day brunch. We'll be back tonight." They were gone for 7 hours. When they came home at 8 p.m., Sarah was carrying a huge bouquet of roses and a gift bag. I thought maybe it was for me, but she walked right past me into her bedroom and set it on her dresser. Later, I asked about it, trying to sound casual. "Oh, those flowers are beautiful. Special occasion?" She smiled, a genuine warm smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. "Yeah, we got them for Patricia. She loved them. Michael also got her this gorgeous cashmere scarf. She deserves it. She's been so good to us." I went to bed that night at 9:30, earlier than usual, and cried into my pillow for an hour. I told myself I was being selfish, that Patricia had raised Michael, so of course they wanted to celebrate her too. But deep down, I knew the truth. I wasn't a priority anymore. The 5th incident happened 3 weeks later on a Wednesday evening, around 8 p.m. I'd made a pot roast with carrots and potatoes, slow cooked for 6 hours until the meat fell apart. The house smelled amazing. When Sarah and Michael sat down to eat, Michael took one bite and made a face. He said to Sarah, not to me, "You know, my mom makes pot roast with red wine and rosemary. It's incredible. This tastes kind of plain." Sarah nodded. "Yeah, I know. I had it at her house last weekend. It was amazing." Last weekend? She'd gone to Patricia's house for dinner and hadn't even told me. I asked, "You had dinner at Patricia's?" Sarah shrugged. "Yeah, we go there a lot. She's a really good cook." The implication was clear. Better than me. I sat there pushing food around my plate, unable to eat. Michael continued. "Plus, her dining room is gorgeous. She's got this huge mahogany table that seats 12 people and a chandelier. Real china, cloth napkins, the works. Makes you feel like you're at a fancy restaurant." I looked around my small kitchen with the fold-out table and mismatched chairs. I felt so small. The 6th incident was in June, on a Friday night around 9:30 p.m. I was watching TV in the living room, a game show I liked. Sarah and Michael were getting ready to go out with friends. Sarah came into the living room wearing a beautiful dress I'd never seen before, royal blue with a fitted waist. I complimented her. "Honey, that dress is stunning. Where did you get it?" She barely glanced at me. "Patricia took me shopping last week. She has amazing taste." Then Michael came out wearing a new suit. I mentioned it looked nice, and he said, "Yeah, my mom helped me pick it out. She knows quality." They left without saying goodbye. I sat there on my faded couch, in my 10-year-old sweatpants and t-shirt with a small hole near the hem, watching a game show by myself on a Friday night. My friend Rita called around 10 p.m. Rita lives 3 blocks away, and we used to play cards together every Thursday. She'd noticed I hadn't been coming to card games for months. "Helen, what's going on? Are you okay? You used to never miss game night." I made excuses. Told her I was busy with work, that having Sarah and Michael at home meant I had more responsibilities. Rita wasn't buying it. "Helen, listen to me. I ran into Sarah at the grocery store last week, and she was rude to you when you called her. She literally told you she was too busy to talk and hung up on you while I was standing right there. That's not normal. Your daughter is treating you badly, and you need to wake up and see it." I felt defensive. "Rita, you don't understand. She's under a lot of stress." Rita sighed. "Helen, stress doesn't give anyone permission to be cruel to their mother. Please think about what I'm saying." I hung up feeling agitated. Rita didn't know what she was talking about. She didn't know Sarah like I did. The 7th incident was in July, on the 4th Independence Day. I'd planned a small barbecue in the backyard. I bought hamburgers, hot dogs, potato salad from the deli, all the fixings. I spent $87 on food and decorations, little American flags, and red, white, and blue tablecloths. I invited Margaret, Rita, and a few other friends. Around noon, Sarah came outside and saw me setting up. "What's all this?" I explained about the barbecue, told her I'd invited some people over. She looked annoyed. "Mom, you didn't ask us first. Michael and I already made plans to go to Patricia's pool party. She has a huge in-ground pool and a professional catering setup. We can't cancel now." I felt my stomach drop. "But Sarah, it's just for a few hours. These are my friends, and I wanted us all to celebrate together." She crossed her arms. "Well, that's not our problem. You should have checked with us before planning something." They left at 1 p.m. My friends arrived around 2 p.m., and I had to explain that Sarah couldn't make it. Margaret pulled me aside around 3:30. We were sitting on my back porch, paper plates balanced on our laps. She looked at me seriously and said, "Helen, I'm going to say something, and I need you to really hear me. Sarah is using you. She's living in your house rent-free, eating your food, and treating you like you're beneath her. This isn't okay. You need to set boundaries." I tried to defend Sarah again. "She's just busy building her life with Michael. I understand." Margaret shook her head. "No, Helen, being busy doesn't mean treating your mother like garbage. Wake up before it's too late." The 8th incident was in early August, on a sweltering Tuesday afternoon. It was about 95 degrees outside, and the air conditioning in my house is old and doesn't work great. It keeps the temperature around 78, which isn't perfect, but it's bearable. I was in the kitchen around 3 p.m. making iced tea when Sarah stormed in, sweating and annoyed. "Mom, why is it so hot in here? This AC is pathetic. I'm dying." I explained that the unit was old, that I'd had it serviced recently, but this was the best it could do. She threw her hands up. "This is ridiculous. Patricia's house is always perfectly cool. She has central air, top-of-the-line system." "I can't believe we're living like this," Michael chimed in from the living room. "Babe, maybe we should just spend the summer at my mom's house. She has that guest suite with its own bathroom and thermostat. We'd be so much more comfortable." They started discussing it right in front of me, like I wasn't even there. I felt invisible. Again. The 9th incident happened on my 68th birthday, August 24th, last year. I didn't expect anything big, but I thought Sarah might at least take me out to dinner or bake a cake. That morning, I woke up at 7 a.m. to my phone buzzing. It was a text from Sarah, sent at 6:45. "Happy birthday, Mom. Got called into work early. Have a good day." That was it. No phone call, no card, nothing. I spent the day alone, sewing 3 bridesmaid dresses that were due Friday. Around 6 p.m., my phone rang. It was Margaret singing Happy Birthday. She asked what Sarah had done for me, and I lied. Told her we were having a nice dinner later. At 8:30 p.m., Sarah and Michael came home carrying shopping bags from the mall. They'd been shopping. On my birthday. Sarah breezed past me. "Hey, Mom, we're exhausted. Heading to bed early." I sat in the living room until 11 p.m., staring at the wall, wondering when exactly I'd become so unimportant to my own daughter. The 10th incident was in September, on a Sunday afternoon. I was making a big pot of chicken soup because Sarah had mentioned she wasn't feeling well, had a cold. I spent 3 hours making it from scratch, with vegetables and homemade noodles. When I brought her a bowl around 4 p.m., she took one sip and made a face. "Mom, this tastes kind of bland. Do you have any hot sauce or something?" I offered to add more salt, more pepper, whatever she wanted. She sighed. "Never mind. I'll just order some pho from that Vietnamese place. Their soup actually has flavor." She ordered delivery and ate it in her room. My soup sat on the kitchen counter, untouched, for 2 days until I finally threw it away. The 11th incident was October 15th, a Tuesday evening around 7 p.m. I was in the garage looking for a box of fabric scraps when I heard Sarah and Michael talking in the kitchen. Their voices carried through the wall. Michael said, "Babe, I love you, but I can't keep living here. Your mom's house is depressing. It's small, it's old. Everything smells like mothballs. I feel like we're stuck in a time warp." Sarah laughed, actually laughed, and said, "I know, trust me, I know. I hate it here too. But we need to save more money before we can afford our own place. Just bear with it a little longer." Michael continued, "What about my mom's offer? She said we could stay with her rent-free, and her house is gorgeous. 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, finished basement. We'd have so much space. Sarah paused. Let me think about it. But yeah, that's probably a better option than staying here. I stood frozen in the garage, holding a box of fabric, tears streaming down my face. They hated living with me. They thought my home was depressing, all the sacrifices I'd made, and this is what I got in return. The 12th and final warning came from my neighbor, Mrs. Chen. She's 74, has lived next door for 20 years. One afternoon in late October, I was checking my mailbox when she approached me. Helen, I don't like to interfere, but I've been noticing things. Last week, I saw your daughter and her husband loading suitcases into their car like they were leaving for a trip, and you were standing on the porch looking upset. Are you okay? Is everything all right between you and Sarah? I forced a smile. Everything's fine, Mrs. Chen. Just family stuff. She touched my arm gently. Helen, I've lived a long life, and I've seen a lot. What I see happening in your house isn't right. That girl is treating you poorly. I hear her sometimes through the walls the way she talks to you. You need to protect yourself. You're a good woman, and you deserve respect. I thanked her and went back inside. But her words stayed with me. They joined Margaret's words, Rita's words, all the people who'd tried to warn me. And I started to wonder, what if they were all right? What if I'd been making excuses for behavior that was actually inexcusable? What if my love for Sarah had blinded me to the truth that she no longer respected me? Maybe didn't even love me anymore. But even with all these signs, all these warnings, I still wasn't prepared for what was about to happen next. I didn't know that the worst was yet to come, that Sarah's cruelty was about to reach a level I never could have imagined. Because what I discovered after she left that Thursday night changed everything. The final 6 weeks before that Thursday night when Sarah left were the darkest period of my entire life, worse than losing David, worse than any hardship I'd faced. Because this pain was being inflicted by the person I loved most in the world, the daughter I'd sacrificed everything for. And with each passing day, the humiliation got worse. It was like watching a building collapse in slow motion. You can see it happening, you know it's going to fall, but you're frozen, unable to move, unable to stop it. The first major blow came on November 1st, a Friday evening around 6:45 p.m. I'd spent the entire day preparing a special dinner because it was the anniversary of when Sarah got her first job out of college, something I'd always celebrated with her. I made her favorite meal, pot roast with roasted vegetables, mashed potatoes with extra butter the way she liked, and apple pie for dessert. I set the table with my good dishes, the ones with the tiny blue flowers around the rim that my mother had given me. I even put out cloth napkins, ironed them carefully that morning. When Sarah and Michael walked in, they saw the table and Sarah's face immediately twisted with annoyance. "Mom? What is this?" I smiled, trying to keep things light. "It's November 1st, remember? 8 years since you started at Henderson Marketing. I always cook something special." Michael looked at Sarah, then at me, and laughed. Not a friendly laugh, a mocking one. "Helen, that's kind of sad, don't you think? Making a big deal out of something so insignificant? Nobody celebrates their work anniversary with their mother. That's weird." Sarah didn't defend me. Instead, she shook her head. "Mom, seriously, this is embarrassing. We already ate. We had dinner at Patricia's. She made prime rib with au jus and Yorkshire pudding. It was incredible." They walked past the table I'd spent hours preparing and went to their room. I stood there, my hands shaking, staring at the food getting cold. I ended up eating alone at that carefully set table, tears dripping into my mashed potatoes. The apple pie sat untouched on the counter for 3 days before I threw it away. That night, lying in bed at 11 p.m., I remembered another November 1st. Sarah had been 23, just started her first real job. She'd come home that evening 8 years ago, bursting with excitement, and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. She'd said, "Mom, thank you for believing in me, for paying for college, for making this possible. I'm going to make you so proud. I love you so much." I cried that night too, but for completely different reasons. The second blow came on November 5th, a Tuesday afternoon at 2:30 p.m. I was in the living room folding laundry when I heard Sarah on the phone in her bedroom. Her door was slightly open, and her voice carried. She was talking to someone, probably a friend. "Girl, I cannot wait to get out of here. Living with my mom is literally killing my soul. Everything about this place is depressing. The furniture looks like it came from a 1990s garage sale. The bathroom has one tiny mirror and the shower pressure is pathetic. And don't even get me started on the kitchen. My mother-in-law Patricia has a kitchen that looks like something from a magazine. Granite counters, stainless steel appliances, a wine fridge. Here, we have laminate counters from 1985 and appliances that barely work." She paused, listening to whoever was on the other end. Then she laughed, a harsh sound. "Yeah, I know. Poor Michael has been so patient. He deserves so much better than this. We both do. But we're saving money, so I guess it's worth the suffering. Barely." I set down the shirt I was folding, my hands trembling so badly I couldn't hold on to the fabric. I wanted to march into her room and confront her, but I couldn't move. My legs felt like they were filled with concrete. I went to my bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of my bed for 2 hours, staring at the wall. That evening, Sarah came to my room around 6 p.m. to ask if there was any food. She acted completely normal, smiling, casual, like she hadn't just ripped my heart out a few hours earlier. I couldn't even look at her. I mumbled something about leftovers in the fridge and stayed in my room. The third blow was November 8th, a Friday night. Sarah and Michael were hosting some friends for drinks at our house. Well, my house. Around 8 p.m. I heard people arriving, laughter, music. I stayed in my bedroom, not wanting to intrude. Around 9:15, I needed to use the bathroom. I opened my door quietly and started walking down the hallway when I heard voices in the living room. One of the guests, a man I didn't know, said loudly, "Sarah, whose house is this? Is this your place?" Before Sarah could answer, Michael jumped in. "God, no, this is Helen's house, Sarah's mom. We're just staying here temporarily while we look for our own place. Trust me, we wouldn't choose to live somewhere like this." Everyone laughed. Another voice, a woman, said, "Wow, that's generous of her to let you stay. Where is she?" Sarah's voice came next, sharp and clear. "She's hiding in her room, probably sewing or watching her old lady TV shows. She keeps to herself, which is honestly a blessing. Makes it easier to pretend we don't live in a depressing little house with ugly wallpaper." More laughter. I stood frozen in the hallway, my hand pressed against my mouth to keep from making a sound. I turned around, went back to my room, locked the door, and didn't come out for the rest of the night. Even when I heard them leave around midnight, I stayed in my room. I didn't eat dinner. I couldn't. My stomach was twisted in knots. I kept replaying Sarah's words. Hiding in her room, old lady TV shows, depressing little house. That's what I'd become to her. An embarrassment, a burden, someone to mock in front of friends. The fourth blow came on November 12th, a Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Sarah came in, dressed for work. She looked stressed, rifling through her purse. She looked at me and said, "Mom, I need to borrow $500. Michael and I have some bills to pay and we're short this month." I felt a jolt of shock. After everything, she was asking me for money? I said quietly, "Sarah, honey, I'm on a fixed income. I don't have $500 to spare right now. I have my own bills." Her face changed, hardened. "Seriously? After everything we've done for you? We've been living here, keeping you company, and you can't help us out when we need it?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "What have you done for me?" She rolled her eyes. "We've been paying rent, haven't we?" I stared at her. "Sarah, you haven't paid me a single dollar in rent. Not once in 2 years." She waved her hand dismissively. "Well, we've helped around the house. That counts for something. And anyway, I'm your daughter. Isn't helping family what parents are supposed to do?" I felt anger rise in me for the first time. Real anger. "Sarah, I paid $47,040 for your college. I paid $8,000 for your wedding dress. I've given you over $55,000 in 8 years, and you've never once thanked me or offered to pay me back." She laughed, a bitter sound. "That was your choice, Mom. I didn't force you to do any of that. You chose to spend that money, and now you're throwing it in my face? That's manipulative." She grabbed her keys and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. I sat at the kitchen table until 9 a.m., coffee going cold in my cup, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. My own daughter thought I was manipulative for mentioning the sacrifices I'd made for her. The fifth blow was November 15th, a Friday evening around 5:30 p.m. Patricia came over. She didn't call ahead, just showed up. I answered the door, and she stood there in her expensive clothes, looking at me with barely concealed contempt. "Hello, Helen. Is Sarah home?" I told her Sarah was still at work. Patricia nodded. "Well, I just wanted to stop by and see the place Michael and Sarah have been living. I wanted to understand what they've been enduring." Enduring. That word cut through me like a knife. She walked past me without being invited in, her heels clicking on my floor. She looked around the living room with this expression, like she was touring a condemned building. "Oh my, this is quaint." She touched the back of my couch with one finger, as if checking for dust, even though I'd vacuumed that morning. She walked into the kitchen and actually wrinkled her nose. "Helen, dear, have you considered updating? These cabinets are very dated. And is that linoleum?" I didn't think anyone still had linoleum floors. I felt my face burning with humiliation. I wanted to defend myself, to tell her that this was my home and I'd kept it clean and maintained on a limited income, but my voice wouldn't work. She continued, "Well, I can certainly see why Sarah and Michael are eager to move out. This must be very difficult for them, especially coming from better circumstances." Better circumstances. She was talking about herself, implying that her son had lowered himself by marrying my daughter. Before I could respond, she smiled, that cold, tight smile. "Anyway, I just wanted to extend an invitation. I have a beautiful guest suite, as you may know, and I've told Sarah and Michael they're welcome to stay with me anytime. I think they'd be much more comfortable at my home. 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, heated floors, smart home technology. Everything they deserve." She left after 10 minutes, but the damage was done. I felt small, inadequate, like everything I'd worked for my entire life didn't matter because it wasn't as fancy as Patricia's mansion. The sixth blow was November 17th, a Sunday afternoon. I was working in my sewing room around 1 p.m. when I heard Sarah and Michael arguing in their bedroom. Their voices got louder, and I could hear every word through the thin walls. Michael yelled, "I can't do this anymore, Sarah. I can't keep living in this cramped house with your mother hovering around." "It's suffocating," Sarah yelled back. "What do you want me to do? We don't have enough saved yet for our own place." Michael's voice dropped, but it was even more menacing. "Then let's move in with my mother like she's been asking. At least there we'd have space, privacy, respect. Here, I feel like I'm living in poverty. Your mom's house smells old. Everything is falling apart, and she's always there with that pathetic look on her face like she's waiting for us to appreciate her." "It's pathetic. She's pathetic," I heard Sarah sigh. "I know. Trust me, I know. Sometimes I look at her and I just feel embarrassed. Like, how did I come from that? She has no ambition, no style, nothing. She's just this sad old woman clinging to the past." The words hit me like physical blows. Pathetic, embarrassing, sad old woman. I sat in my sewing room, surrounded by the work I'd done to support her entire life, and I felt something inside me break. Not just crack, fully break. Like a vase hitting concrete and shattering into 1,000 pieces. The seventh blow was November 19th, a Tuesday evening around 8 p.m. I'd made dinner, a simple chicken stir-fry with vegetables and rice. I set 3 plates out like I always did, even though they barely ate with me anymore. When they came home, they saw the food, and Michael actually groaned. "Helen, come on. We've told you we don't want to eat your cooking. Why do you keep doing this?" I felt tears prick my eyes. "I just thought you might be hungry," Sarah snapped. If we're hungry, we'll order our own food. Stop wasting your time making things nobody wants." She walked past the kitchen, and I heard her say to Michael, "She's so desperate for attention, it's actually painful to watch." I threw away the dinner. All of it. 3 plates of food went straight into the trash. I didn't eat anything that night. Just went to bed at 7:30 p.m. and stared at the ceiling. The 8th blow was November 20th, a Wednesday afternoon. My friend Margaret called around 2 p.m. She could tell immediately something was wrong. "Helen, what's going on? You sound terrible." I broke down. I told her everything. Every cruel word, every humiliation, every moment of pain. I sobbed into the phone for 30 minutes while Margaret listened. When I finally finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Helen, you need to kick them out. Today. Right now. They're abusing you emotionally and you don't deserve this. You've given that girl everything, and she's treating you like garbage. End this." I wiped my tears. "I can't, Margaret. She's my daughter." Margaret's voice got firm. "Helen, listen to me. Being someone's mother doesn't mean letting them destroy you. You have rights. This is your house. You can make them leave. Please, I'm begging you, protect yourself." I told her I'd think about it, but I knew I wouldn't do anything. I was too scared. Scared of losing Sarah forever, scared of being completely alone, scared of admitting that my daughter didn't love me anymore. The 9th blow was the worst before that final Thursday night. November 21st, a Thursday afternoon around 4 p.m. I was checking the mail when I found an envelope addressed to me from a law firm. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a document, thick with legal language I barely understood, but certain words jumped out at me. Conservatorship, mental incompetence, financial guardianship. My heart started racing. I read through the pages and slowly, horribly, I understood what I was looking at. Someone had started proceedings to declare me mentally incompetent, to take legal control of my finances, my property, my life. The document listed Sarah Mitchell and Michael Mitchell as the petitioners. My daughter and son-in-law were trying to have me declared unable to care for myself so they could take control of my house. I felt dizzy. The papers fluttered from my hands onto the driveway. This couldn't be real. But it was. There were dates, signatures, official stamps. They'd filed this 3 weeks ago, on November 1st, the same day I'd made that special dinner they'd mocked. While I was cooking for them, they were plotting to steal everything from me. I picked up the papers with shaking hands and went inside. I hid them in my bedroom, under my mattress. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I needed to think. I needed to understand what this meant. But now I knew the truth. They didn't just disrespect me. They were actively trying to destroy me, to take my home, my independence, everything I'd worked for. And I realized that every cruel word, every humiliation, every moment of mockery had been leading to this. They wanted me to feel worthless so I wouldn't fight back when they took everything. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I lay in bed, listening to them laugh in the other room, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. The 10th blow, the final one, was that Thursday night, November 28th, when Sarah packed her bags and screamed those horrible things in my face. When she told me my house stank of failure and poverty. When she said she was going to live with Patricia because at least she had a decent home. When she left me standing in the hallway, shattered and alone. But what Sarah didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that I'd spent the past week taking action. I'd made phone calls, I'd gathered documents, I'd consulted a lawyer, and I'd discovered that I had power they never expected. Because while they were plotting to take my house, they'd made a critical mistake. A mistake that was about to cost them everything. The morning after Sarah left, Friday, November 29th, I woke up at 6:15 a.m. with swollen eyes and a pounding headache from crying all night. But underneath the pain, there was something else. Something I hadn't felt in months. Anger. Pure, righteous anger. I got out of bed, made myself a strong cup of coffee, and pulled out those legal documents from under my mattress. The conservatorship papers. I read through them again in the morning light, and this time Instead of feeling afraid, I felt determined. They thought I was weak. They thought I was some pathetic old woman who would just accept whatever they did to me. They were wrong. I picked up my phone at 7:30 a.m. and called my friend Margaret. She answered on the second ring. "Helen, are you okay?" I told her everything about the legal papers, about Sarah leaving, about the conservatorship attempt. Margaret was silent for a long moment, then she said, "Helen, you need a lawyer, right now, today. My nephew Robert is an attorney. He handles elder law and estate cases. Let me call him and see if he can see you today." Within an hour, Margaret called back. Robert could see me at 2 p.m. that afternoon. She offered to drive me, and I accepted. I spent the morning gathering documents, everything I could find. The deed to my house, which I'd bought with David 32 years ago for $89,000 and had paid off completely in 2015. My bank statements showing every deposit, every withdrawal, every sacrifice I'd made for Sarah. Receipts for her college tuition, all $47,040 of it. The receipt for her $8,000 wedding dress. Records of the $55,600 I'd given her over 8 years. Copies of emails and text messages, evidence of everything. At 1:30 p.m., Margaret picked me up in her blue Honda. We drove to downtown, to a tall glass building on 5th Street. Robert's office was on the 12th floor, a professional space with leather chairs and diplomas on the walls. Robert Martinez was 41 years old, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. He listened to my story for 45 minutes without interrupting. I showed him every document, every piece of evidence. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and nodded slowly. "Mrs. Helen, I'm going to be very direct with you. What your daughter and son-in-law are attempting is called predatory conservatorship. They're trying to declare you incompetent so they can gain legal control of your assets, specifically your home. The problem for them is that conservatorship requires substantial proof of mental incapacity. From what I can see, you're completely competent. You're articulate, organized, financially responsible. This case would be thrown out of court in minutes." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "So they can't take my house?" Robert shook his head. "Not unless you let them. The house is in your name, correct? Solely your name?" I nodded. David and I had bought it together, but when he died, it transferred to me. The deed was 100% in my name. Robert continued, "That means you have complete legal authority over the property. You can evict anyone living there who isn't on the lease or deed. Since your daughter and son-in-law are not legal tenants, they have no tenant rights. You can remove them immediately." He paused. "But there's more. The fact that they filed this conservatorship petition while living in your home rent-free after you financially supported them for years shows a pattern of exploitation. We could potentially file a counterclaim for financial elder abuse. In this state, adult children who exploit their parents financially can be held legally accountable." My hands were shaking, but this time from adrenaline, not fear. "What do I need to do?" Robert pulled out a yellow legal pad and started writing. "First, I'm going to file a response to their conservatorship petition. I'll include documentation of your mental competence, your financial responsibility, and evidence of their exploitation. The judge will dismiss their case. Second, I'm going to draft a formal eviction notice. Since they're not legal tenants, this will be a notice to vacate, giving them 30 days to remove themselves and all their belongings from your property. Third, I'm going to prepare a cease and desist letter regarding any further attempts to claim rights to your property or finances. And fourth, I'm going to document everything they've done in case we need to pursue legal action for elder abuse." He looked at me seriously. "Mrs. Helen, I need to ask you something. Are you absolutely certain you want to do this? This will likely end your relationship with your daughter, at least temporarily. This will be painful. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about the past 6 months, the humiliation, the cruelty, the mockery, the way they'd made me feel worthless in my own home. I thought about Sarah screaming that my house stank of failure. I thought about them trying to steal my home through legal manipulation. I looked at Robert and said, "Yes, I'm certain. Nobody treats me like that in my own house, not even my daughter. Robert nodded approvingly. Good. Give me 3 days to prepare everything. I'll call you Monday, December 2nd, with the documents ready. Margaret drove me home, and I felt different. Lighter, like I'd been carrying a crushing weight and someone had finally helped me set it down. That weekend was strange. Sarah didn't call, didn't text. It was like I'd ceased to exist for her. On Saturday morning, I cleaned her room. Not to prepare for her return, but to prepare for her removal. I boxed up some of her things, organized her clothes, Michael's stuff too. On Sunday afternoon, my neighbor Mrs. Chen knocked on my door around 3 p.m. She was holding a casserole dish. Helen, I saw Sarah leave with all those suitcases the other night. I wanted to check on you. I invited her in, and over tea, I told her everything. Mrs. Chen listened, nodding, and when I finished, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Helen, what you're doing is right. It's brave. Your daughter needs to learn that actions have consequences. I'm proud of you. Those words, simple as they were, made me cry. Someone was proud of me. Monday morning, December 2nd, Robert called at 9:45 a.m. Mrs. Helen, everything is ready. I've filed the response to the conservatorship petition. I have the notice to vacate prepared, and I have the cease and desist letter. When would you like to serve these documents? I took a deep breath. As soon as possible. Robert explained that the documents needed to be served in person by a professional process server for legal validity. He could arrange that for Tuesday, December 3rd. But I had a better idea. I wanted to be there when they received them. I wanted to see their faces when they realized what they'd done. Robert advised against it, said it could be emotionally difficult, but I insisted. We made a plan. The process server would meet me at Patricia's house, where Sarah and Michael were staying, at 11 a.m. on Tuesday. Tuesday, December 3rd was sunny and cold, temperature around 42 degrees. I woke up at 6 a.m., too nervous to sleep. I dressed carefully, chose a navy blue dress that David had always said made me look dignified. I did my hair, put on minimal makeup, my small pearl earrings. At 10:30 a.m., Margaret drove me to Patricia's address. It was in the wealthy part of town, Spring Valley Estates, where the houses all had 3-car garages and manicured lawns. Patricia's house was huge, a 2-story colonial with white columns and a circular driveway. The process server, a professional woman named Linda Garcia, was already waiting in her car. At exactly 11 a.m., the 3 of us walked up to the front door. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I rang the doorbell. After about 30 seconds, the door opened. Patricia stood there in casual but expensive clothes, yoga pants that probably cost $150, and a silk blouse. Her face registered confusion when she saw me, then annoyance. Helen? What are you doing here? Before I could answer, Sarah appeared behind her. Mom, why are you here? Her voice was uncertain, almost guilty. Then Michael came into view, and his face immediately hardened. Linda stepped forward. I'm looking for Sarah Mitchell and Michael Mitchell. I have legal documents to serve. Sarah's eyes went wide. Legal documents? What is this? Linda handed each of them a large manila envelope. You've been served. Please review the contents carefully. I stood there, my back straight, my chin up, and watched as they opened the envelopes. Sarah pulled out the papers first. I could see her eyes scanning the pages, confusion turning to shock, turning to horror. What? This is a response to... Mom, what did you do? Her voice was rising. Michael was reading his copy, his face turning red. Patricia tried to look over their shoulders. What's going on? What is this? I finally spoke, and my voice was steady, strong. Those documents are a formal response to your attempt to declare me mentally incompetent and steal my house. They contain evidence of my complete mental competence and documentation of your financial exploitation of me for the past 8 years. Sarah's mouth dropped open. Exploitation? Mom, are you insane? I continued. Those documents also include a notice to vacate my property. You have 30 days to collect any remaining belongings. After that, anything left will be considered abandoned. and there's a cease and desist letter regarding any further attempts to claim rights to my property or finances." Michael exploded. "This is ridiculous. We were living there helping you out. We were keeping you company." I looked directly at him. "You never paid a single dollar in rent. You mocked my home, called it depressing and pathetic. You tried to have me declared incompetent so you could take my house. That's not helping. That's abuse." Patricia stepped forward, her face twisted with anger. "How dare you come to my home and harass my son and his wife? Sarah has been nothing but devoted to you." I turned to Patricia. "Devoted?" "She told me my house stank of poverty and failure. She said she was embarrassed by me. She called me a sad old woman with no ambition. That's not devotion. That's cruelty." I pulled out one more document from my purse, something Robert had prepared as additional evidence. "This is a complete financial record of everything I've given you since you turned 18. College tuition, $47,040. Wedding dress, $8,000. Additional financial gifts over 8 years, $55,600. Total, $110,640. Not including the cost of raising you for 18 years before that, or the 2 years of free housing you just received." I handed it to Sarah. Her hands were shaking as she took it. Michael was pacing now, running his hands through his hair. "This is insane. You can't just kick us out." Linda, the process server, spoke up. "Actually, she can. As the sole owner of the property, she has the legal right to remove non-tenant occupants. You have 30 days. Patricia looked furious. "Well, they're staying here with me, and we're going to fight this. I'll get my lawyer involved." I looked at her calmly. "Your lawyer will tell you the same thing mine told me. They have no legal claim to my property. The conservatorship case will be dismissed. And if you try to continue this harassment, I will file for a restraining order and pursue charges for elder abuse." The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "Mom, please. We can talk about this. We can fix this." I felt my own tears starting, but I blinked them back. "Sarah, you had months to talk to me with respect. You chose cruelty instead. You chose to mock me, humiliate me, and then try to steal from me. Those choices have consequences." Michael tried a different approach. His voice got soft, almost pleading. "Helen, come on. We're family. We made some mistakes, said some things we shouldn't have. But that doesn't mean you should destroy our relationship." I looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw him clearly for the first time. Manipulative, self-serving, entitled. "Michael, you called me pathetic. You said living in my home felt like poverty. You convinced my daughter that I was an embarrassment. And then you tried to legally steal my house. Don't talk to me about family." Patricia jumped back in. "Sarah told me about your house, Helen. It's not suitable for a young couple trying to build their life. They deserve better." I turned to her, and something snapped inside me. All the restraint I'd been holding on to broke. My house is a home I've maintained with dignity on a seamstress's income for 32 years. It's clean, it's paid for, and it's mine. The fact that it's not a mansion like yours doesn't make it unsuitable. And the fact that you encourage my daughter to disrespect me, to look down on me, to think she deserved more than what her own mother could provide, that says everything about your character, not mine." Patricia's face went bright red, but before she could respond, Sarah collapsed onto the foyer floor, sobbing. "Mom, please, please don't do this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean any of it. Please." I looked down at my daughter, 30 years old, sitting on the marble floor of her mother-in-law's mansion, crying like a child. And I felt nothing. No sympathy, no urge to comfort her. Just emptiness. "You have 30 days to collect your belongings. After that, everything goes to donation. Read the documents carefully, follow the instructions, and don't contact me unless it's to arrange pickup of your things." I turned and walked away. Margaret and Linda followed. As we reached the car, I heard Sarah screaming from the doorway. "Mom, Mom, please, don't leave like this. Mom!" I got in the car. Margaret started the engine, and we drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw Sarah standing in Patricia's driveway, still screaming, Michael trying to pull her back inside. And I didn't look back. That evening, I sat in my living room, in my small, clean house with my old furniture and my paid-off mortgage. And I felt peace. Real peace. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. My phone rang at 6:30 p.m. It was Sarah. I didn't answer. She called 17 times that night. I didn't answer any of them. She left voicemails. Crying, begging, apologizing, threatening, bargaining, every emotion possible. I didn't listen to them. Over the next 3 days, I received 43 text messages from Sarah, 12 from Michael, and 7 from Patricia. I blocked all their numbers. On December 6th, Friday, Robert called. Mrs. Helen, I have good news. The court reviewed the conservatorship petition and your response. The judge dismissed their case entirely. There was insufficient evidence of incompetence, and the judge noted in her ruling that the attempt appeared to be financially motivated. It's over. They lost. I actually laughed. A real, genuine laugh. Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much. He continued, also, they have until January 2nd to retrieve their belongings from your home. I suggest you have someone present when they come, just to ensure there are no incidents. A witness. I agreed. Margaret volunteered immediately. The 30 days passed slowly. December felt like the longest month of my life, but it also felt like healing, like I was recovering from a long illness. I kept working, sewing dresses and alterations. I had coffee with Margaret and Rita. I went to church on Sundays. I decorated my house for Christmas, something I hadn't done in years because Sarah always said it was tacky. I bought a small tree, hung lights, played carols. On Christmas Day, I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. I cooked a small turkey, made stuffing and cranberry sauce. I watched old movies, and I felt grateful. Grateful for my home, my independence, my dignity. Grateful that I'd found my strength before it was too late. January 2nd arrived, the final day. At 10 a.m., a moving truck pulled up in front of my house. Sarah, Michael, and 2 moving men got out. Margaret was sitting in my living room with me, a silent witness. Sarah knocked on the door. I opened it. She looked terrible. Her eyes were swollen, her face pale, like she hadn't slept in weeks. Mom. Her voice was barely a whisper. I stepped aside without saying anything, letting them in. The movers started loading boxes and furniture from Sarah's old room. The whole process took about 3 hours. I watched from the kitchen, not saying a word. When they were almost done, Sarah approached me. Tears were streaming down her face. Mom, I know I messed up. I know I said terrible things. But please, can we talk? Can we fix this? I can't lose you. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said quietly, You already did lose me, Sarah. The moment you tried to take my home. The moment you called me pathetic and embarrassing. You lost me then. What happens now is up to you. She tried to hug me. I stepped back. Don't. Michael came over, his jaw tight. We're done here. Let's go, Sarah. They left. The truck pulled away, and my house was finally mine again. Completely, totally mine. For 3 months after that January day, I heard nothing from Sarah. Complete silence. It was like she'd disappeared from my life entirely. In a way, she had. Those first few weeks were hard, really hard. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, around 2 or 3 a.m., and think about calling her. My finger would hover over her number in my phone before I remembered I'd blocked her. I'd remember the little girl she used to be, the one who'd bring me dandelions from the yard and call them pretty flowers for the prettiest mommy. I'd remember her at 16, sobbing in my arms after her first heartbreak, saying, I love you, Mom. You're the only one who really understands me. Those memories hurt worse than the cruel words ever did, because they reminded me of what I'd lost. Not just my daughter as she was now, but the daughter she could have been, the one I thought I was raising. But then I'd remember the other things too. Her face twisted with contempt as she called my house disgusting, the legal papers trying to steal my home. the way she and Michael had laughed about me with their friends. And the grief would harden back into resolve. I spent those 3 months rebuilding myself. I started going to a support group for people dealing with difficult family relationships. It met every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. at the community center on Oak Street. There were 12 of us, all different ages, all dealing with adult children or parents or siblings who'd hurt them deeply. Hearing their stories made me realize I wasn't alone. That what had happened to me wasn't unique. That elder abuse and family manipulation were more common than anyone wanted to admit. I started exercising, taking walks around my neighborhood every morning at 6:30 a.m. The fresh air cleared my head. I lost 12 pounds. I felt stronger, healthier. I redecorated my house the way I wanted it. I painted the living room a warm cream color. I bought new curtains, soft blue ones with white flowers. I got a new coffee table from a secondhand store and refinished it myself. My house started to feel like mine again. Not a place I had to apologize for, but a home I was proud of. I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected while trying to please Sarah. Rita and I started our weekly card games again. Margaret and I went to the movies every Friday afternoon. Mrs. Chen and I had tea together on Sunday afternoons. I built a life that felt full and meaningful. My seamstress business actually improved. Word got around somehow that I'd stood up for myself, and people seemed to respect that. I got 3 new regular clients in February alone. One of them, a bride named Jennifer Collins, told me her mother had been in an abusive relationship with her sister, and my story had inspired her mother to set boundaries. Jennifer specifically sought me out because she wanted to support me. That meant more than she could ever know. Then, on April 8th, a Thursday afternoon around 3:30 p.m., my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and saw Sarah standing on my porch. She looked different, thinner. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wasn't wearing makeup. She looked exhausted. My first instinct was to not answer, to let her stand there and eventually leave. But something made me open the door. We stood there looking at each other for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. "Hi, Mom." Her voice was small, tentative. "Hello, Sarah." I kept my voice neutral. She swallowed hard. "Can I come in? Can we talk, please?" I considered it. Every fiber of my being was screaming to say no, to protect myself. But I stepped aside. "You have 15 minutes. She came in and looked around, saw the changes I'd made. "The house looks nice, really nice." I didn't respond, just waited. She sat on the edge of my couch, the new one I'd bought in March from a local furniture store. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap. "Mom, I've been living at Patricia's for 4 months now, and it's been hell." I raised an eyebrow but didn't speak. She continued, her voice breaking. "Patricia is controlling every single thing we do. She criticizes how I dress, how I clean, what I eat. She makes passive-aggressive comments constantly about how we're living off her charity. She monitors how long I shower because she says water is expensive. She complains if we use too much electricity. She goes through our room when we're not home and reorganizes our stuff. She tells Michael that he married beneath him and that he deserves better than me." Sarah started crying. "And Michael has changed. He treats me the way he treated you, like I'm an inconvenience, like I'm not good enough. He compares me to his mother constantly. He says I'm ungrateful, that I don't appreciate everything we have. Last week, we had a huge fight, and he told me I was just like you, poor, inadequate, embarrassing." She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "And Mom, when he said that, I finally understood. I finally understood what I did to you. I treated you exactly the way he's treating me now, and it's destroying me. And I realized that I destroyed you too." The silence stretched between us. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated, to say, "I told you so," to watch her suffer the way she'd made me suffer. But mostly I just felt sad. Sad that it had taken her own suffering to develop empathy. Sad that she'd had to lose everything to understand what she'd had. "Sarah," I said quietly, "do you understand why I did what I did? Why I made you leave? She nodded, wiping her eyes. Yes. You were protecting yourself. From me. Because I was hurting you. I sat down in my armchair across from her. Why are you here? She took a shaky breath. I came to apologize. Really apologize. Not because I want something from you, but because you deserve to hear it. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for every cruel word. I'm sorry for the way I treated you, for being ashamed of you, for trying to take your house. I'm sorry for not seeing all the sacrifices you made for me. I'm sorry for choosing Michael's mother over you. I'm sorry for making you feel worthless when you're the strongest, most amazing person I've ever known. She was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to let me back into your life. I just needed you to know that I see it now. I see everything I did, and I hate myself for it. I felt tears in my own eyes. Sarah, I need you to understand something. I will always love you. You're my daughter. But love doesn't mean accepting abuse. Love doesn't mean letting someone destroy you. I had to choose myself, and that was the hardest thing I've ever done. She nodded. I know, and you were right to do it. You were right to protect yourself from me. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Then I asked, what are you going to do now? Are you going to stay at Patricia's? She shook her head. I'm leaving, Michael. I filed for divorce last week. I can't be in a relationship where I'm constantly told I'm not good enough. I finally understand what you tried to teach me my whole life, that my worth isn't defined by money or status or someone else's approval. I'm moving out next week. I got a small apartment on the east side. It's tiny, just a studio. But it's mine. I felt something shift in my chest. Pride, maybe. That takes courage. She gave a sad smile. I learned it from watching you. She stood up, preparing to leave. Thank you for letting me say this, Mom. I won't bother you again. But I needed you to know that I'm sorry, and that everything you did for me, all those years, all that money, all those sacrifices, I see it now, and I'm grateful. Even if I never showed it. I walked her to the door. Before she left, I said, Sarah. She turned. I'm glad you're leaving Michael. You do deserve better. Not because you deserve wealth or status, but because you deserve respect. Everyone does. Her eyes filled with tears again. Can I call you sometime? Not often. Just maybe once in a while? I considered it carefully. You can call me once a month, on Sunday afternoons. We'll talk for 30 minutes. We'll see how it goes from there. But Sarah, understand this. I'm setting boundaries now. If you ever speak to me with disrespect again, I'm done. Permanently. No second chances. Do you understand? She nodded quickly. I understand. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for giving me even this much. She left, and I closed the door. I sat down and cried for an hour. Not from sadness, but from release. From letting go of the anger and hurt I'd been carrying. From making space for something new. Whatever relationship Sarah and I had now, it would be different, healthier, built on respect instead of obligation. Over the next 6 months, Sarah called me every other Sunday, always in the afternoon between 2 and 3 p.m. The conversations were awkward at first, stilted and careful, but slowly they got easier. She told me about her divorce proceedings, about her new job as an administrative assistant at a law firm, about her tiny apartment and how she'd learned to budget, to cook simple meals, to appreciate what she had. She asked about my life too, really asked, and listened to my answers. In September, she asked if she could visit for coffee. I said yes. She came over on a Saturday afternoon, bringing flowers from the grocery store. Nothing expensive. Just a simple bouquet of daisies. We sat in my kitchen, drinking coffee from my old mismatched mugs, and talked for 2 hours. When she left, she hugged me, a real hug, and whispered, I love you, Mom. I'm working every day to become someone worthy of your love again. It's been almost a year now since that Thursday night when Sarah left. Today, our relationship is different. We're not as close as we once were. Maybe we never will be again. But there's respect now, honesty, boundaries that protect both of us. Sarah is still with Michael, though things remain difficult between them. She's in therapy, working through her issues with materialism and her need for external validation. She's learning who she is outside of someone else's expectations, and I'm proud of her for that. As for me, I'm 69 years old. I live in my small, clean, paid-off house. I work as a seamstress. I have my friends, my routines, my peace. I'm not wealthy. I don't have a mansion with marble floors and chandeliers. But I have something more valuable. I have my dignity. I have my self-respect. And I have the knowledge that I was strong enough to stand up for myself when it mattered most. So if you're watching this video and you're in a situation like I was, if someone in your life is treating you badly, making you feel worthless, taking advantage of your love and generosity, I want you to hear this. You deserve respect. You deserve to be treated with kindness. And it doesn't matter if the person hurting you is your child, your parent, your spouse, your sibling, or your best friend. Abuse is abuse, no matter who it comes from. Setting boundaries doesn't make you selfish. It makes you strong. Protecting yourself doesn't make you cruel. It makes you wise. And choosing your own peace over someone else's manipulation doesn't make you heartless. It makes you healthy. I know it's scary. I know it feels impossible. I know you're afraid of losing them, of being alone, of making things worse, but let me tell you what's scarier. Losing yourself, becoming a shell of who you used to be, living in constant pain and humiliation because you're too afraid to say enough is enough. Don't wait as long as I did. Don't let it get to the point where legal action is necessary. Speak up earlier. Set boundaries sooner. Value yourself today, not someday. And if you're on the other side of this, if you're the one who's been treating someone badly, if you recognize yourself in Sarah's story, it's not too late to change. It's not too late to apologize sincerely. It's not too late to look at your behavior honestly and make different choices. But understand that forgiveness isn't guaranteed. Some damage can't be undone. Some relationships can't be fully restored. And that's a consequence you have to accept. Your parents, your family, the people who love you don't owe you endless chances to hurt them. They don't owe you their suffering. Respect isn't optional. Gratitude isn't a weakness. And kindness should never be taken for granted. Thank you for watching my story. Thank you for listening. If this video resonated with you, please leave a comment below sharing your experience. You're not alone. There are thousands of us out there learning to choose ourselves, to set boundaries, to demand the respect we deserve. Hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more stories like this. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear this message. And remember, it's never too late to stand up for yourself. It's never too late to choose peace. It's never too late to take back your life. My name is Helen. I'm 69 years old, and this is the story of how I found my strength again.